Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Help Me Understand, a conversation about leadership, faith, governance, and the questions that shape us. My name is Isabel, and today we're going to begin with, you got it, a question. So, have you ever worked for someone that you respected even when you disagreed with them? And have you ever worked for someone you obeyed but never really trusted? What's the difference? Now, I've been thinking about that question for a long time because if there's one thing I've learned after more than 20 years working with founders, executives, board of directors, entrepreneurs, private equity firms, and countless of professionals, it's this. Leadership isn't a title. It's a relationship. Some people have authority and very few people earn trust. And I think that those two things are often confused. So today, I'd like us to explore a different question. Not what makes a good leader, because we've all heard those lists. Instead, I'd like to ask, what makes someone worth following? Now, I've had the privilege of working for many different leaders over the course of my career. Some inspired people and some intimidated people. Some listened, some talked, some welcomed questions, some avoided them, some led from the front, and others quietly stood beside the people they served. And what's interesting is this: years later, I don't remember most of their titles. What I remember is how they made people feel. Now, think about the best leader you've ever had. What made them different? Was it intelligence, experience, their success, or was it something much simpler? Did they listen? Did they keep their word? Did they admit when they didn't know something? Did they make you feel safe enough to ask questions? Now, I've come to believe that trust isn't built during the easy season. Trust is built during the difficult conversations. Anyone can lead when everyone agrees. Real leadership begins the moment someone disagrees. That's when character shows up. Now, here's something that I've been wrestling with. Authority can be given, trust cannot. Authority comes with the title, trust comes with consistency. Authority can require compliance, trust inspires commitment. Think about that. If someone stopped being your boss tomorrow, would you still seek their advice? Would you still want to learn from them? Would you still follow them? If the answer is yes, then you probably trusted them. Now, I've discovered that the leaders I admired most weren't the ones who had all the answers. They were the ones who weren't afraid of the questions, because questions never threatened them. Questions made them better. And maybe that's one of the greatest gifts a leader can give another person: the freedom to ask. Now, I'd like to pause our conversation for just a few minutes because this week I finished a blanket for a young man named Julian. His mom had reached out because she wanted him to know that someone was praying for him and walking beside him during a difficult season. And as I tied the very last knot, I found myself thinking about leadership. Not because blankets and leadership seem connected, but because service and leadership are. Leadership isn't always standing in the front. Sometimes leadership looks like quietly serving someone you'll probably never meet. No applause, no recognition, just love in action. That's one of the lessons that Knits of Grace continues to teach me. Every blanket reminds me that influence isn't measured by how many people know your name. It's measured by how many people leave your presence feeling less alone. That's the kind of leader that I hope to become. And maybe that's the kind of leader we all need a little bit more of. So now I'd like to hear from you. Who was the best leader you've ever worked for? Not the most famous, not the highest ranking, but the best. What made them different? What did they do that stayed with you years later? And maybe an even harder question, have you ever become that leader for someone else? Because leadership isn't reserved for CEOs. Parents lead, teachers lead, nurses lead, volunteers lead, friends lead. Sometimes the most important leaders never have a title at all. Now, I'd love to hear your story because this conversation isn't complete without you. So before we go, I'd like to leave you with one final thought. Every one of us wants to be heard. Not necessarily agreed with, but heard. And sometimes the most powerful thing a leader can say isn't, I have the answer. It's, tell me more. Because being heard doesn't solve every problem, but it does remind us that we matter. Thank you for being a part of this conversation. I read your comments. I do think about your questions, and many of them do become the next episode. So if today's conversation sparks something in you, please tell me, because this isn't my conversation, it's ours. Until next time, help me understand.